inventory. I watch how I behave and my ideas and all that. 12, I was sponsoring a lot of guys. I have commitments and always have had. And 11, I pray. I talk to God all the time, but like I said, I had been meditating off and on, in and out, and I have a sponsor who's really big on meditation, had me meditating since I walked in the doors, and I looked at him, you don't meditate every day, you know? You do it like on the fly. And I said, I've got to meditate every day. And so I made a commitment at that time, at about 19 years ago or so, that I was going to meditate every day. So I get up really early to do that, because I got to get up before my kids. I've got a wife and 2 kids. Well, my oldest one's in college now, but I still got a 14-year-old at home. And I like to get up before everybody else and have time, you know, to spend that time with my higher power, because like I said, I'm really grateful to be sober. I'm grateful I'm an alcoholic now. And it's really, I don't take credit for it, because power, something got me here. You know, something happened September 20th, 1983, that stopped me in my tracks and had me at the middle of a drug deal say that there was something wrong with me to these guys that I had just delivered. Can you talk about drugs in this meeting? Yeah? It's okay? Oh, thank God. See, God loves me, so he said, you know, you could talk about drugs. And I said, there's something wrong with me. I can't do this anymore. And they looked at me like I was crazy. No, Ron, it's like if you just drank, it's those pills you take and that stuff, that Valium, you're taking too much of that. And I said, no, there's something wrong with me. And I left that guy's apartment. He's sober today, over 25 years, himself now. I left his apartment and I made some phone calls the next morning, and I got directed to a hospital in Santa Monica called St. John's, into a 21-day program that I checked myself into that next day, and I've been sober ever since. But so I get up early to spend time now and meditate, and I pray first. Actually, I put my kid's pill out in the morning. She has Hashimoto's disease, and she needs to take Synthroid, synthetic thyroid medicine. And I put that out for her, and I set up the coffee pot for my wife, because my wife likes to come out and clunk on the little Keurig machine and have her coffee come, you know. So she's happy that, like, I've set it up for her and she can get her coffee. So I do that for them. And then I go and I sit and then I choose a quote. I like to read a lot. And like I said, I don't really like to speak, but I like to read. I'm was introverted. I'm not really anymore. But so I like to read, and I love to read spiritual literature and about meditation and different things and all kinds of religious, from mystic Christianity to Buddhism. And I choose a little quote on spirituality or meditation and something, and I text it to some friends who asked me to help them with meditating and making a commitment to it, and I send it out, and a little tagline that I'm sitting here now, and my little mantra there's a type of prayer meditation called centering prayer, and in that you choose a sacred word, and you introduce this word, and I say, hi, God, and I hang out, close my eyes, and I go meditate. And I meditate for 20 minutes. And when my mind takes off and like says, well, oh no, you know, like you got this to do at work, or you got to pick up the kid at 2, and you got to do this, then I start thinking, I gotta. Hi, God. And I feel in my gut, in my soul, in my heart, that place in me, and that still small voice that 39 plus years ago spoke to me and said, if you don't change, if you don't grow up, you're going to die. And there's something wrong with you. And I listened that day, and that's where I pray too. I don't know what God is, you know, but I know that it pulls on my heartstrings, whatever it is, and I believe it's absolute love, absolute wisdom, absolute guidance, absolute creative intelligence. So I reach out to that spot all day long. But I start my days now where The first 20 years, I'd be like, get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, jump in the shower 10 minutes before it's time to go to work. And I'm on like that was on that like wheel. But now I spend so a full hour. I text, it's crazy. It's grown over the 20 years. I text over 100 people every morning, one at a time. And I had nobody to talk to when I got here, barely, you know? I mean, the guy I was selling the dope to, because he wanted the dope, and I worked with him. But like I said, I was extremely introverted. I mumbled, I could barely talk. And now, I get up in the morning, there's 100 people, like I send a text to, like that I'm gonna meditate. Like, how about, you know, I don't care if they meditate. I bet 10 of them meditate. I don't know. It's not my business. But they ask me that they want this, you know? Some of them have come over, a few, and meditated with me over the years. That's what I do. And then I got up, and then I go and I open, I'm on the board of a clubhouse in Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks now, Radford Hall. It's one of the oldest AA places in the valley in LA. And I'm the trustee of the board there. And I open the hall on Saturday and Sundays. I work early hours, a day job my whole life, and Saturday and Sunday are mornings. Since I get up early, you know, it's a good time for me to be of help, because I'm up before most everybody I know. Then I go over there and I open the clubhouse. I make coffee, sweep up the street and do stuff and help out, and I hang out. And then an older gentleman who just came back, who I sponsor, texted me, said, hey, last night, are you opening up? Can I come over and meet you? You know? I go, yeah, great. So he comes over and we're talking about our program and stuff and sharing what we're doing. How's he doing? Stuff. We hang out, we make coffee. And I did a meeting at 9 o'clock. I opened up the place at 6:45 and hung out with him for an hour. Then we went to a 9 o'clock meeting that was there. And then I went home, visited my wife and my kids for a little bit. And then I went and ran an errand for the house for my wife, got gas in her car for her. And then I went to Smart and Final and I bought coffee supplies for the clubhouse and took them back to the clubhouse. I have to be very careful. My wife, once in a while now, will be, are you going back to Radford again? Yeah, I've been spending a little time. My wife's not in the program, you see, so. And I try to balance, you know, but since I've been on and off the board about a half a dozen times over the last 20 years, I got to be careful when I'm on the board. I get a little wrapped up in doing stuff, and I like it there, you know. And my wife's really busy, and you know, she'd be like working and doing stuff. So I'm like, I'm off. She doesn't need me. I'm off to the clubhouse. So I did that, and then I came home and I took a little nap, and then I came here, you know, and that's what I do. And I love AA. So I'm busy in AA. I'm doing stuff, you know. I don't know about service. I don't usually use that word. You know, I get a lot out of this, you know. I do. You know, hopefully I do some stuff that's useful, you know, and I help out. That's all I know. My wife likes to say, do what's needed, you know. That's what she does as an office. She does what's needed. Like I said, so I got here, I was 24 years old. I was living in my grandmother's house. Yeah, because I was married and divorced by the time I was 24. I am not the kind of drinker and user that was functional, you know. I started at 14, 13 years old, and I was off and running. And I'm the kid that had a ton of potential, you know. The parents thought that I could go to like an Ivy League school even maybe or something. I was a smart kid. I did well in school until my parents got divorced, and I decided it was going to be more fun to get loaded, smoke cigarettes and get loaded, and just everything went out the window, you know. I got an attitude and a thing of like, see, they had told me life was going to be a certain way. It was like our house looked like Leave It to Beaver or Father Knows Best, you know. And me and my brother and mom and dad went off to work in a little suit in a middle class neighborhood in Van Nuys. And it went out the window at 13 when my parents broke up. And I was like, you know, you guys are wrong. You told me life was supposed to be a certain way, and it's not, you know. It's not safe, it's not secure, and it's not. So, you know, I don't, like most alcoholics, I don't like authority, and this just shows me, you know, like I'm not going to listen to anybody or anything. And I think even before all that happened, I was born an alcoholic. I think even from the earliest age, I couldn't understand why my parents wanted to tell me what to do. Right? Don't they know? I know what to do. I don't need their help. You know, I thought I was smarter than you know. Why are they telling, you know? So I had a little bit of attitude, but I was basically a pretty good kid. And then it was just off and running. And from 14 to 24, I was a heat-seeking missile for just to fill myself, and I didn't know it. You know, I just thought it was like, I'm off to have fun because they're all wrong. I didn't know that maybe I was filling a hole, you know, and the pain and the fear and the anger I had towards my parents. I didn't know any of that, you know, but I'm sure, you know, that's like what we do. My sponsor taught me, you know, is that we drink and we use because we're suffering. We drink and use because we're suffering. And we suffer, he told me, because of how we think. We suffer because of how we think. And there's like 3 kind of categories, he said. There's the way I think about myself, which basically is that I'm no good, I'm not good enough, you know. I have to do well to have your approval. What I think about you, you'll hurt me. You're going to leave. You know, it won't be like you said, right? Mom's going to cheat on dad. It's all going to go south. So you guys can hurt me. And what I think about God was, I don't know what I thought. It was innocuous. I didn't have any like bad ideas about God, but it was not a power that I would turn to or anything really. Like I say, just sort of an innocuous, yeah, maybe there's a oneness, but then there's me stuck over here, you know, kind of thing. And my sponsor, Al, used to say, you take those 3 things and like an equation, 1 + 1 + 1, you draw a line. And for him, he would always say, get the answer with Salvation Army, you know. And for me, it was draw the line, and the answer was Grandma's house. You know, married and divorced at 24, living at Grandma's for the 2nd time. Have her take care of me, you know, because the world owed me, you know, because they'd done me wrong. So I, you know, at 24 years old, I said, I hit that bottom where I woke up and in the middle of that deal and had this spiritual awakening. And for the first time, so like, I became teachable, and I don't know how that happened. How did 1 minute, I could not even remember what I was doing, basically. I lost my keys 5 times on the way to this guy's house to deliver these drugs because I was blacking out. I hadn't slept in a week. I was drinking a 5th of vodka a day, taking 250 milligrams of Valium, and smoking like an 1/8 ounce of pot every day. And I was a mess. And how does that happen? That I just, all of a sudden, it's like, if you don't change, you're going to die. And I end up in the house. And then the other thing that happened and occurred to me was that, like I said, you know how it says in our book, we will intuitively know how to handle situations. Intuitively know. You see? All my life, I was run by the thoughts and the craziness in my head and the ego and the stuff in my head, and couldn't listen to this at all, but I was able to listen to that. And something told me, aside from that there was something wrong with me, that if I could ever listen to this place in my heart, in the center of my being, that I would be okay, and that I could be okay the way I was looking to be okay with drugs and alcohol. If I could listen to that, if I could live there, that I would be okay. I'm like, wow. So when I got into Alcoholics Anonymous and I read the steps and it said, 1, I admitted I was powerless over alcohol and my life had become unmanageable. I had done that in this guy's room. It had happened. It happened. I don't even feel like I it happened. I was like surrendered by drugs and alcohol. And then my life was unmanageable. I'm at grandma's house for the second time, I'm 20. But two, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity was that feeling. That if I could ever listen to that intuitive part of me, that still small voice, that I could be okay. So step two, that's what step two. And I went, wow, that sounds like step two. And then three, I make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood it, praying only for knowledge of this. So I get it. Yes, I've felt this feeling that if I could ever listen, I'll be okay. But then a little bit of doubt. So I'm good with I'm gonna turn my will and my life over to the care of God. But then, oh shoot, what if God wants me to live at grandma's house for the rest of my life? It's just a little dangerous, this turning my will and my life over. But I started doing the third step. Like I said, I like to read. I read through the big book, cover to cover, twice in the 21 days or more while I was in the hospital. And I started doing the third. Nobody told me even to do this. I don't remember how I did it. I don't know if I heard it in one of the meetings or the groups, but I started doing the third step prayer morning and night while I was in the hospital. And I continued that for about 5 years. Now my prayers are different when I meditate and stuff. But and I do the third step prayer now at the end after I meditate now lately. But I started doing that, and I started talking too. And when I would turning my will and my life over to the care of God, it's to this place in my heart, where I feel this tug on my heartstrings, So I started talking to that down on my knees. I would say the third step prayer, but then I would talk, and I would envision, and I feel, and I sense. I sort of am, I don't know if I'm a bit of a feeling person. Some people are visual, I hear, and maybe visualizing something of what God means to them or something, or a place is a good way to do things. I'm a feeling person, and this intuitiveness has always been with me. And so I talk to that. And someone says, hey, God, I'm going to go back to grandma's house. Am I going to be back at grandma's for the rest of my life? Or where, I'm like 24. Am I ever going to have a girlfriend? Blah, 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 and I just would talk with God. And so I got out of that hospital, and, I met my sponsor while I was in the hospital. I got taken to some meetings, and I got taken to a big Saturday night speaker meeting in Malibu, and his wife was the first speaker, and he was the main speaker, and I was just sorry, I'm not funny, but he's funny. He's really funny. He would he used to pick up a book. I was telling Randy, he'd pick up a book, and he'd hit himself on the head, and he goes, I want you to know it's not my fault. My uncle molested me when I was a little kid, or it'd be my mom cheated on my dad, and they broke up, and it's not my fault. I want you to know it's not my fault. Oh, well, okay, I'm beating this. And I'm just fucking laughing my butt off, and turns out he worked for my uncle, and so I got to hang out with him, and he came and he picked me up on the Monday after that and took me to a meeting where he was secretary, a step study. And he gave me, at the end of that, he drove me home to the hospital where I was at, St. John's, and I asked him to be my sponsor. I was terrified. I asked him to be my sponsor, and he said, okay, and gave me a commitment at that meeting as a greeter, because he knew I was afraid of people, so I had to stand at the door and say hello to people. So that's a great commitment. If you're new and you're shy, greeter's fantastic. And so I got a commitment there. I got a coffee commitment a little bit later at a CA meeting in Hollywood. And I've had, I think I've had 1 or 2 commitments all of my sobriety, I've grown up in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't see the time. like I said, I was 24. It took me about a year to get out of grandma's house, you know. It was kind of fun living at grandma's and I had a little job and make a lot of money, but I was a clerk at a company and clerical work. I'm an accountant now, kind of, and you know, early sobriety, run around with, I was young and run around, made some friends with a couple people and like having all my money to spend. But there was that tradition that said we were self-supporting through our own contributions. And I knew I had wanted to grow up, and I knew that was the chance, that I had to grow up or I was going to die. And so, I set the goal, I got to get out of grandma's house. And I got myself an apartment, and I got a little better job. And this went on till about 4.5 years of sobriety. I worked my way up a couple little jobs. I was assistant manager of a garment company and doing okay. So I had a nice little apartment, Beverly Hills adjacent, and near Cedar Sinai. And I was at this meeting, and it's funny, I saw this guy, he's kind of famous. His name's Danny T. I won't say his last name. I'm missing him tonight. I haven't heard him speak in like 20 years in person. I saw him last night at the meeting I go to on Friday night, and he's speaking at my clubhouse tonight. So, which I don't even care. But anyway, so 4.5 years, I'm still kind of nervous though about people. I'm still nervous. My hands still sweat. I'm still nervous, but I go to a lot of meetings, but I get there just a little bit early, and then people ask, you want to go fellowship? No, I got to go home. I got to go to work. I'm still shy around people, and Danny's speaking, and he goes at the CA meeting on a Wednesday night, and he says, if you're miserable all day long, you're doing something wrong. And I thought, oh, fuck. Excuse my language. I have a tendency to. So I thought, I'm not really miserable all day long, but yeah, I'm tight still, I'm in this group. And I thought to myself, I walked out of the meeting and I thought, Ron, you've been sober 4.5 years, 4 years, 9 months. You're out of grandma's, you got an apartment, you're doing good, you got a little bit of time, you're coming up on that 5 years, which is like that sort of first, feels like a kind of a big milestone. And I thought, there's people coming in after me, and I don't know if I sponsored one guy only then or two, but I realized that there's more newcomers coming in after me that are where I was, 4 years earlier, and that are worse off. And I thought, Ron, you're not, you got to get out of your own head. And I went up to these two, a guy named Marty B. and this lady, Laura Kaufman, who became one of my closest friends. I ended up sponsoring her in her last 5 years before she passed, after her sponsor moved away. And I went up to them and I said, how are you guys, one at a time. I said, how are you doing? And I got their phone numbers and stuff. And the one, Laura, called me every day, almost for like 25 years, till she passed. And since that day, so that was a little over 35 years ago, about 35 years ago, I have not had a bad day in 35 years. I have had horrific moments. I mean, really. I have a daughter who was in high school, when she was in high school, had some really bad stuff happen, had a really rough time. And went into a little place for a little while, and not one of us, I don't think yet, but some other food issues, and it was really hard. I had a moment where I thought she wanted to pull out of high school and isolate, and because of some bullying and some things that happened at school. And I thought, I know what it is to isolate, We as alcoholics know what that is, right? To feel separate, alone, and different. And to see my daughter going through that was fucking killing me. And I'm like praying, like everything, like what do I do here? And we had this moment where somebody recommended this charter school. She was at this private girls' school. And I had someone recommend this school, and I talked her into letting me take her to it to go check it out. And so this was 4 years ago. And we went to that school and we walked in, we got a tour by the vice president and vice principal, and we went into the first little bungalow. It was a little tiny charter that was renting space on a Chatsworth High School, public high school, another school. And one of her very first friends from preschool was in that class, one of the most outgoing kids, this girl we've ever known. And she jumps up screaming, "Oh my God, Bella, Ron, are you coming to school here?" And I got her to the car, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, "Do you think you can come to school here?" And she said, "Okay, I think I can." And she just came home for about 6, 7 weeks for summer. She goes to college in Madrid. My kid came to me and my wife with a PowerPoint presentation about how we could send her overseas for school for the same cost of sending her to maybe somewhere middle America, back east. Or my kid, who was like having such a rough time and wanted to like go into her bedroom and do school from her room, came to us with that because the lady who ran that school was so incredible of college placement and stuff. And my kid always had this in her, this independence and strength and stuff in her. And yeah, and she's doing amazing. She wants to stay and live in Madrid now. She's got a boyfriend over there. Oh, jeez. Yeah, anyway, I'm so grateful. Yeah, and I didn't go. My mom took her to the school. It's St. Louis University has a campus in Madrid, and my mom took her to see it. I took her to another school somewhere else to see, and she loved it there. And I went there for my birthday this February for the first time, and we spent, just me. My wife went the year before and spent 10 days with her, and I went and spent a week with her for my birthday in February and had just a beautiful time. And you know, and so there's been stuff, you know, there's life happens, you know. My business is where I work, it's been in decline for 10 years. Work in the garment business, it's horrible now. It's not a great business. I'd like to do something else. I don't know what to do. But I don't know, I pray every day, you know. But I have such an incredibly rich life. Other than that, I mean, that's good too. I get to do what I want. Even though like business is bad, I'm like financially, it's okay. Not that great, you know, I struggle, but my life is so rich otherwise. And I have a freedom because I've worked, it's a family business, come and go as I want. I get to spend an amazing amount of time with my daughters. Both of them I have. I've spent so much time in AA and with my daughter. I spend like all my time doing one or the other. Sitting in dance classes with my first daughter, acting, helping build sets with my kid, my second kid who likes to act, and being in Alcoholics Anonymous and hanging out with my friends in AA. Those are really like the two things that I do at times, and then hanging out with my wife. And I think she gets the short shrift sometimes, you know. Now that I'm saying this, I'm thinking, no wonder she tells me, "Are you going to Radford again?" And then, so anyway, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love sobriety. I say this a lot now, this is the most amazing place on earth. It's even better if you're an alcoholic. So, I mean, I think normies should have these, you know, something. I mean, they got other things, but not as good as this, you know? You know, my dad is a spiritual seeker and has a tiny little men's group that barely can get together. And he looks at what we have and what I have in my men's groups and the amount of men that that call me sponsor and hang out with me and stuff, and the support that we have here in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know? That's hard to get out there, even for those who want it, you know, who want these kind of support. We do have the best, I think, the best support group around. And so I'm eternally grateful and in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. It gave me the tools to develop and nurture and maintain the gift that I was given by this power, whatever, that touched my heart. Gave me the tools to foster and develop that and maintain that relationship and cherish this gift I was given. And I do that each and every day. And I thank you. And like I said, I love you and I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you.